It's okay by me.
They're all right here.
Is it okay with everyone that we are recording? Did I get a nod?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That way. Well, welcome, Jackie. I haven't met you yet. I'm Susan. Where are you from?
I am from Scottsdale, but my home church is Westminster Presbyterian in Greensburg.
Westminster Presbyterian, and you have a new pastor,
We do, yes.
Jennifer Freyer Griggs.
Yes, she's amazing.
She's a dear friend, and I've been doing training work with her for a year. So in a cohort like this, so say hi to her from Susan.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, Susan.
Good to
B.
meet you.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Jackie. I know you're with Jennifer. And Kathy, how about you?
Sorry about that. I'm from Enon Valley, little church in Enon Valley.
Little church, is it a struggling church?
Well, just like everyone else, but we're celebrating our 150th anniversary this year. So I'm sorry, we can't hear you all the time.
Can't hear me all the time.
You're breaking up for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Very clear. Thank you. You know what that
Mhm.
is? Did I hit something that?
No, you didn't.
I don't think so.
Can you hear me all right? Oh dear, they're shaking their heads, Craig.
We can't always hear the beginning of what you're saying.
Interesting. I will try to be more specific in my language. Does that help a little bit? That's okay. And Ference? What's happening? Yes, tell me about yourself, Ken.
I'm from Bellevue United Presbyterian Church. I'm an elder and a deacon there, and that's in the Pittsburgh Presbytery. Reverend Ronnie Christie's our minister. We got her from, I think, Oil City.
Ronnie, but I'm sure gonna pray that she's doing okay there. That
Oh, she's a
kind of-
good fit for us. Crazy
Okay.
as we, she's as crazy as we are.
I love it. It seems like you both own it. Is that correct? You
Yes.
own being crazy and she owns being crazy.
Yes. Oh, she'll
Okay.
admit it just like I do. I keep the session meeting going.
She has what does she do at?
Lively session meeting, we said.
Oh, lively. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hi, Paige. Can you hear me? I still can't hear you. Are you still on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Hello.
Where are you from? Paige?
I'm from Rayland, Ohio. My church is Glen Robbins Presbyterian Church.
Is that in Upper Ohio Valley?
Yeah, it's do you know where Martin's Ferry is at? Okay, Rayland is towards the Steubenville direction.
Okay, okay.
So kind of far out.
Okay, we have people from all over the southwestern PA and Ohio area. Anyone from West Virginia? Did I miss that you were in West Virginia? The great state that we didn't recognize for so many years at the Synod. We weren't very good at. Did you notice that Vivian is here? She wasn't here in the morning, but she's here now. She's in the back there. You can. A meditation. And I hope you all can. The name of my talk today, it's had several names as Craig and I have talked over the past few months. And today it is called The Power of Listening. And I don't know about you, but I get my power out from listening to God. I mean, I'm not asking for anything. I am not telling God anything. I am sitting, waiting on God. So we'll do just a little bit of that today. But first of all, we're going to listen to the scriptures. Would someone, I'm gonna say Tim here. Would you read Psalm 133?
133.
Yes. We're going to look at Psalm 133, and please say brothers and sisters. I'm pretty sure the King James says brothers. Please say brothers and sisters when you read it. James and Jerome Creech would agree with me, I'm sure. When they spoke in the male plural form, they were referring to a crowd, and in that crowd would have been women. So I just want to include all of us here today. Crowd with women. Go ahead, Tim. Thank you. Listen carefully and please read slowly, Tim. This is a time for us to listen to the word of God, and in particular for a word that God might make more heavy, more poignant for you to receive today. Let us listen carefully for God at God's word.
Behold, it is for brethren and sisters together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head, garments, as the dew of Hermon, as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore.
Anybody be willing to share the word that they heard, if it was a word or a phrase? Heard unity very strongly. Anyone else?
Well,
Okay, the phrase, dwell together in unity. And Sarah, same? Anyone else?
Was the ointment running down.
There's a feel to it, doesn't it? Anyone online receive a word or phrase?
Yeah, blessing from the Lord ordained his blessing. Life forevermore. It's a longer sentence for unity.
Thank you. That's how my mind went also, Ken. I appreciate that. Explanation, unity, and then following up blessing. Anyone else hear something? To reading of 1 Corinthians 12. Would someone like to read it out loud, slowly, carefully? speak loudly so that the people, or do you have someone online want to read it? We can hear you better than you can hear us.
That'd be a good idea, I think, yeah.
Does anybody have a Bible you can read there? Ken's getting something. You have 1 Corinthians 12.
Yeah, I'll get it here in a second.
And the same thing again, listen carefully. God's saying to you or us this afternoon.
Okay, I got it.
Go ahead, Ken.
Brothers and sisters, now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers and sisters, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were enticed and led astray to idols that could not speak. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking by the Spirit of God ever says, "Let Jesus be cursed." And no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. To one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge, according to the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, the discernment of spirits. To another, various kinds of tongues. To another, the interpretation of tongues. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we are all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, "Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, "Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body," that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I have no need of you," nor again the head to the feet, "I have no need of you." On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with greatest honor. And our less respectable members are treated with greater respect. Whereas our most respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then deeds of power, then gifts of healing, forms of assistance, forms of leadership, various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? But strive for the greater gifts, and I will show you a still more excellent way.
You can. Or any word or phrase that comes to you from the reading? Sure.
I liked the alliteration of same spirit.
Thank you, Jackie.
I like how it all comes back to unity again. How everything is united with one. And how we have to share our unity with one another.
Sharing brings about the unity.
Here, separately, those things are all great, but they all have to work.
TJ has recognized the differences that there are in the body, but all are still a part and need to be recognized. Thank you, TJ. Anyone else? One spirit from him, one spirit. I'd like to read a meditation for us to receive also and listen for whatever in it God might be speaking to you. It's a meditation from Bruce Larson. Asked me to dance a long, long time ago. Still good. Listen for what God is saying to you. Can you envision a church in which you tell people where you hurt and expect their listening ears, their sympathy, and their prayers? Even a church where this is required for membership. It is inconceivable to imagine a hospital where people come in and spend years and are never asked what is wrong by the staff or even by their fellow patients. But this has happened all too often in the church. In fact, it might be rude to suggest that something is wrong. And so the church is full of people who have ceased to expect any kind of relevant help, and indeed consider it impolite to mention pain or hurt. Let's take about 5 minutes just to sit in the presence of God and sense what God is bringing to us this afternoon. Let us pray. Let us pray in silence. God of the church, God of the universe, loving God of our lives, help us as we are with one another this afternoon. Find ourselves in you, learning from you, being guided by your Spirit towards a church in which there is unity and blessing, where there are differences and different gifts, but all people somehow are one in unity for the healing and hope that you intend for your people and for the world. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you for joining me in that opening. And now, as I explained before, the newest title of this afternoon workshop is The Power of Listening. I think one of the most important things that I have learned about listening is, as TJ has said, people are different. Now, I want to get to some experiences that I've had in the church, and hopefully you will have had something like that or gain some insight on how to deal with certain people in your congregation. Now, I have a wonderful member in the congregation that I served for 27 years. His name was Al, and Al was always having a problem every Sunday morning. And he would come at me, well, we said, what did you find? And I was meeting his voice level, not his anxiety level. I was happy to see him and happy to hear that he had something to share with me, but I had to match him or he would think I didn't hear him. If people are loud, they like loud. If people are quiet, they like quiet. There is purpose in every way that a person is, and for you to really get into their world, to, like God, come down and be one with them. Church in Washington, I was assigned after the pastor left to go and moderate the session. And I went with all my understanding and great love for the church and the people. And I sat down at the head of the table like this. And we just started the meeting probably with a prayer. Then one fella, where Vivian is at the opposite end of the table, stood up on his chair and started yelling at all of us. Oh, excuse me, I was like this, sitting down, not standing up. But when he stood up on the chair and started yelling, I stood up and I said, we want to hear what you have to tell us today. Sounds like it's something that is very important to you. I was trying to match his level of. I was not going to get up on a chair, but let me tell you, my heart was pounding. This was the beginning of a meeting. And I'm thinking to myself, who's next? This is going to be, but he was the only one who acted this way. Acted this way all the time. When I said that to him, he got off the chair, faced me across the room, and he said, good, because there are a lot of things that are important that we need to talk about tonight. That I hope that we can get around to all of them.
How long are you gonna be, Melissa?
Probably until like 8 p.m.
Officer
Okay.
Mason,
Step down. So they're ready to work.
they
with the
support
group.
it. too.
My heart started calming. Have any of you done that before? Have you ever, and Craig, why don't you go up here and let's give an example here. So I'm going to mirror him.
Just saw your grandchildren just the other day in the grocery store.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. Been quite a ruckus for
Oh,
their
my
mother, but
goodness.
she was handling it pretty
She was
well.
handling good, good. I like to hear
You
that.
taught her well.
Ah, thank you.
Well, we understood some of the mime of it. We understood some of the mime of it because it cut out
Some
a
of the-
lot.
Thank you, Ken. Thank
Being a mime,
you. And you might think that people don't want you to do that. I want you to go places and try it and see if they don't just keep on talking. Something that what I was doing was mirroring, and I was really doing everything. You matching them, you just can do it by their tone level or their, excited eyes or something like that. But, and you can go over the top. You can, and they say, what are you doing? I go, you were excited about, and then I would tone it down a little bit. So that I didn't take the focus off of them and put it back on myself, which is not the intention of listening, is it? So it's a little miming, and it's almost like being a mirror. You can practice, following someone when they put their left hand up, you put your right hand up, and you pretend like you're their mirror. Exercise, but you all understand what that's about. So we're going to keep moving on. I'm going to pass out this paper that I have here. And those of you who are not present will get on your screen and make a copy of it. I'm not sure. Just get started here. These are people. Okay. All right, this is A. And this is B, just for a better word, or Alice and Betty. Okay, we're going to do women because they look like they have skirts on today. Once you understand about someone, which I think is number one and vital. The next thing is actually to understand that there is a gap, an interpersonal gap that's going on. Years ago, I think it was back in the 50s, a man by Theodore Reich discovered lag time, that a person can speak at 100 to 150 words per minute. I'd have to talk really fast to do 150 words per minute, but you can pick it up. In fact, the listener can pick up 400 to 500 words. When a person is talking so slowly at only 100 words per minute. Can anybody tell me what you're doing? Tuning out, you tune out. You can't fall asleep in front of someone, but there's a part of you that's shutting down, right? Or what else do we?
Response.
We're already thinking of a response. They haven't finished what they said. That's what happens in lag time. A couple of good examples. Thank you very much. So then this was another study that was done, 1965. No, that was, I got the wrong guy here. This is the same guy. At that 7 minus 1 or 2 bits of information can be consciously per second. Every second. 7, 8, 9 bits of information. So as I look at the entire group here, I can see when someone is nodding off or whatever. I can see if someone is losing interest, falling back, and they're rolling their eyes back, and something like that. It's that's on the conscious level. Get this. At the unconscious level, get ready. 10,000 bits of information are going in. Your brain, bam, 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 per second. Per second. So the amount that we receive, be bombarded with, you might call it a distraction. I'm aware of the temperature in the room. I'm aware of a little buzz of a sound that's going on with that temperature, although it's not loud, it's just a real subtle thing. You know, the window blinds, everything outside, the grass growing, the trees, the bugs, everything that's going on, I'm aware of, and I could be distracted by that. They have taken persons like a person in a crime who was thrown in the back of a car and driven to another spot and then dumped out. And the police have had a hypnotist. The hypnotist hypnotizes them so they slow down that experience when they're dragged out of the car, and they can read the VIN number or the license plate and give that information to the police. Barely conscious. It's all gone in. So we have a bigger lag time than we even know. So let's take a look at these two people that are talking to each other, because you're going to be doing this in just a few minutes. 7% of your communication is words. What else is coming in at the same time? Anybody got an idea? Jim? What?
Visual.
Or Jim, I'm sorry.
Jim.
Visual, things you see visually, where? In their bodies? Where else? Around the room? There's all kinds of information going on at the same time. We'll talk about that later, but that's body, which is 55%. And then the tone, we give whether we're talking like this, or talking like this, or whether we're talking like this, just the tone, saying the same words, completely different tone. And that is 35, 38, it has to add up. That adds up to 100% of the communication, just throwing into 3 categories. Of course, there's thousands of bits of information that are flowing. So B, who's going to do the listening, has to focus on some of that. So we're going to break it down. What do you focus on when you're just using the words? Have any of you learned about paraphrasing? It's a paraphrase. You said,
Taking what you just said and breaking it down into my version of it.
Very good. Excellent definition. Excellent. Did you get that? Anybody else understand? Have you had training in listening skills?
Might need to repeat it for those online. They can't hear Jim's voice as well.
Okay. So a paraphrase is repeating back to a person who has spoken to you with similar words of what you heard. What it does, it is a caring response, letting them know that you are going to take the time to actually hear what they have to say. It's your first cue to them that you're focused. Otherwise, we go, I'm fine, I'm fine. We go on about our lives. You said that you were busy with your grandchildren yesterday. Oh, yeah, I was with them. My daughter-in-law had to go to the hospital. Whoa, you got a bigger story, don't you? And all you did was pick up on the words that they said. It begins to build trust and love. You're sharing your love with them when you do this. Now, there's an effectiveness to paraphrase. It can become parroting. You can use it maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, and it's still effective. And then they're going to notice what you're doing, and it might lose its effectiveness. So there's an arc. We call it the arc of effectiveness. Where and understands what paraphrasing is. I did paraphrasing with my husband the very first time we talked for 2 hours. I have never listened to my husband for 2 hours till I had to practice that exercise. And let me tell you, I've been practicing listening to my husband this week, so he's gotten a good dose of listening. So I'd be ready for today. Paraphrase what the other person says. I like to break you up into dyads, and you can split off into 2s right now and go down the hallway and find just 2 chairs and sit. You're going to have one person talk about for a getaway this summer, unless you want to talk about something else. What are your plans for a getaway? And you're only going to talk for about 3 or 4 minutes. And the other person is going to paraphrase. Well, let's say 5. I'll give you 5 minutes of talking. This is a chance to talk and have someone listen. The other person will just paraphrase. You are not going to tell them what you did. Just suck it up until 5 minutes. And then you're going to get your turn to do it. And then we're going to switch to the other person. So those of you who are online, we'd like to put you in to 2 breakaways, 2 people in each way. 1, do you understand what you're being asked to do right now? Is it clear to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. 5 minutes each. With the other one person talking, the other one paraphrasing, just dealing with the words that you say. Okay. And then the other person gets to talk for 5 minutes. You're going off into outer space. I hope we get you back. And you guys go down the hallway, all the rooms on and 2 chairs. So pick a person and go find 2 chairs. Start talking. Not your ordinary same person, but someone different. I'll let you know in 5 minutes.
So I got Paige by herself now. I need to.
And the other 3 are in a room.
There were an even,
Bring Paige back.
yes. Mhm.
Jackie, are you there? Is Jackie there at all? Jackie? Okay, Paige, tell me. What your getaway is.
Getaway. Okay. Well, I plan on going to Florida this September with my mom and my dad. And we're going to visit my relative. She is having her 99th birthday this year.
Going down with mom and dad to see this relative who's going to be 99.
Yeah, she's been down in Florida for probably about 50 years now, but she used to live up here. She's actually my grandfather's only living relative left.
Wow.
Yeah, the oldest of them all. She lived the longest, and she's still kicking pretty good. But I'm excited to go down to Florida. She lives down in Jacksonville, so we're gonna go visit the beach and visit her at the same time, and hopefully we might be able to get her out on the beach too.
You would actually take her out on the sand at the beach?
I definitely would. I don't think she's been in a long time because, you know, how old she is, and it's hard for her to get out, but I feel like that would be something fun for her to do at 99 years old.
Yes. So you and your mom and dad and this, how is she related to you? What's the aunt?
Yes, she's an aunt. She is my grandfather's sister.
Aunt. Great aunt. Yeah.
Yes. She's a lovely lady. I had also thought about possibly going somewhere else earlier in this year, not only to Florida, just because I need a break. We were thinking about possibly going to, oh, what's the mountain with all the faces on it? I can't remember the name of that mountain.
Yeah.
I cannot remember it, but my mom has always wanted to travel there, and she's one of those traveling people that want to go all over the United States before she dies.
You'll take your mom to Rushmore, Mount Rushmore.
Yes, Mount Rushmore.
Dad will go
Yeah,
also. Mom and dad.
yes. We're just having a bit of a problem with the whole flying situation because me and my dad are petrified of heights.
And your dad are afraid of flying, which is taking you way up into the sky, and you're afraid of flying?
Yes, we're afraid of flying, and we're afraid of being like up in the air like at all. My dad has flown once. I've never flown before in my life.
That's a tough situation to get everybody out there. You could drive. That possibility to keep you all on the ground. Would you do that?
I've thought about it, but in the end, like that's gonna cost so much gas money.
It will cost
Yeah, it's a
more
lot
for
of
you
gas
to-
money.
for gas, yeah. Yeah. And hotels.
And then not only that, you're gonna have to stop at a bunch of hotels to get clear over there, and you know you still have to stop for food and everything else. So I feel like it's just gonna take way more time than is needed.
More time is not what you want to spend driving.
No, we all have motion sickness too, so it doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, so how can it be any better?
Oh, well, we've pretty much lived off of those soft peppermint things and the Motrin you can get over the counter. That's typically what we do. Last year we went to Alabama and drove all the way down, and that's like 15 hours straight. So a little rough.
driven to Alabama before, and that's been a time you've had to do this before.
Yeah, we're used to that. Most of the time we've always drove to the places we went, but I think this time I might buckle up and fly.
All right, I hear you. It's a change. I have to tell the others to change, switch. I'll be right
Okay.
back. Okay. Now, your turn to paraphrase me. Just repeat part of what I say.
Okay.
House. And I call it my getaway house. I really love it. It's up in New York State. And even when I was a pastor, I would go up there just maybe on a weekend because we had that house.
So you like to go up to New York when you were a pastor on the weekends?
It was a time for me to have a break, to not do what I ordinarily do and really leave town. But now I go in the summer. It's my getaway place where people can't catch me from around here. They do call me and text me and all that, but I'm in a new place and it's right next to the Chautauqua Institution and it's on Chautauqua Lake. And I can get in my canoe and ride all around. I love it.
Oh, so you like to go to the canoe, kind of get away, especially during the summer on the lake. I can imagine that must be beautiful.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Chautauqua is a place where there's spiritual events, there's recreation events, there are education events, and entertainment. So there's always something to do, and I grab a neighbor or they give me a call and we go walking or canoeing or kayaking or over to a lecture or something like that. Lots to do, and it's stimulating, I think. I think for me, it really gets me going.
Yeah, I can attest to that. It sounds like a beautiful place, especially when you go on walks and, like I said, the canoeing. And you said you go with your neighbors usually?
Yes, that's I have neighbors and friends up there, just like I have here. I have people to walk with up there when I'm up there in the summer. I like I say, have people to go boating with. I had a friend who had a sailboat for a while, and she would call me on Sunday and say, "Are you free?" And I go, "I'm always free Sunday afternoon for sailing," because I can't afford a sailboat, and she had one, and I just had to be there on the crew and maybe hoist up the sail or something like that. And it's a lot of
A
fun.
sailboat sounds pretty fun. Yeah, a sailboat. Holy cow. Was it one of those big sailboats or was it one of the little like two people sailboats?
It was pretty big. It had a lower part with a couple of beds in it. You could sleep in it. And her brother came also. He was the one that did the steering. And sometimes we would have a fourth person, but we had to have a 3-person crew. Otherwise we couldn't get the sail up fast enough, or we couldn't, get the weight we needed to lean and to keep the sailboat going. So.
Well, from the sounds of it, it sounds like you have a lot of good friends up there.
It's amazing. I like to go on a cruise ship, because to me, it would be the same thing. I would go and have a whole new group of people to have fun with and to do something with. And that's what I think I might enjoy. That would be a way in another.
Yeah, cruise sounds really cool. Have you ever been on one, or are you just wanting to be on one?
I could handle it because I like getting away with other people, and I could talk and make friends wherever I went. Didn't matter. And we do things on the boat that you could do, or off the excursions.
There you go. Friends are always make it the best experiences.
Sorry, timer. Okay, you're get the other people. Thank you for practicing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It keeps me going. I have more to talk about when you understand the first things that I say. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm
Thank
aware.
you.
And I don't know how to bring you back, but you're back. Yeah, you're back. The other ones I'll have Greg bring back. Thank you.
Mm.
How much you and I know about each other.
So they can see me. Welcome back.
How are you? I'm fine. Pleased to meet me.
Okay. Back into the main room. You can see on this chart, though, the B person is now feeding back information with a paraphrase. So that's one of the pieces of communication. There are actually about a dozen, and of course, many, many more that people have come up with.
No, thanks. I still got some.
And we'll just learn a couple more today. Oh, I would love a water. Oh, I got some water. Thank you, but this helps. Drink more than I need. Thank you. Everyone's back. Your experiences. Now, just be totally honest here. How is it paraphrasing for 5 minutes?
Yeah, I kept wanting to say something about me or what I was gonna do. This happened to me. Yeah.
Our friends online can't hear you. Have to either project well, or we'll have to kind of encapsulate what each person's remarks are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Paraphrase what we said. That's right.
Yes, that's exactly right. Said that it is hard to paraphrase for 5 minutes. She finds herself thinking of other things or what's happening to her. You know, says automatically because of the time. She's thinking things. That's helpful. Anyone else online too?
Yeah, I'm a talker, so I wanted to respond with, talking back, not listening. I wanted to share my stuff with Ken instead of just listening to him. It was hard for me.
It's hard, and thank you for trying it. And what I'm suggesting is that there is power in listening, and we'll get to other skills today where you're going to go deeper into someone's life. And I've already showed you how even matching someone can be a skill in the church to get them to feel like you're with them right away. And now, as people come in on Sunday morning, if they say something to you, they probably won't talk 5 minutes, but just paraphrase what they say. Put it in your words, what you heard. They might say more, or they might say, oh yeah, it was fun, and just feel like they've been heard.
I'd like to
listen
say,
church. Go ahead, Ken.
I'd like to say the way Kathy handled it was she did a lot of active listening because she responded in the appropriate ways that I was talking. If I laughed, she laughed. So it wasn't just, she was just paraphrasing with words. She was doing it in response to, so if I laughed, she laughed. If I got silent, she was silent. So I like that fact that we related that way. It was like, okay, she's reading my mind on some things, but she's also listening to what I'm actually saying. And I threw some stuff out there that wasn't even pertinent to what was there. And she picked up on it. Way to go, Kat.
He was being tough on you, Kathy. He says.
He challenged me. He did. So, and the silence was the hard one. When
Yes.
he got quiet and I knew he had more to say, it was so hard for me not to say something at that point to him or interpret him. To just wait and give him the time to talk. And I told him that was the hardest part. That silence.
The thing about a new skill is it starts out as very awkward. And then secondly, you become aware of when you're good and you're not good. And then pretty soon you're not aware and you're good. You're doing it. So it's like a stair step where you're moving up. The more you practice it when it's awkward, the more sooner that you'll get to that level where you can do it. Now, my problem with paraphrasing is that I want to add all the other skills that I've learned. And I'm like, no, just paraphrase. Because there is a lot to do because people are giving you cues all the time about what's happening in their story. And you can pick up on them and start to go deeper. Other words about paraphrasing.
Unless it's a issue that's being addressed, like as talking about a vacation, it may just be me personally, but if I'm telling you about something I'm going to be doing, need is for you that, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. Excited for this, like, yeah, that's what I just said. But whereas on the opposite side, if it was somebody has a problem or a concern, how do we go fix this? But from
the thing that, Paige was listening to me and she was just paraphrasing. So you go up to New York State. The more she talked about it, the more excited I got and the more vision I had of what that place means to me. So although I knew we were in an exercise, when she just did this paraphrasing, it seemed awkward. I sensed inside of me more feeling, more awareness. And I'm thinking, this is just us. But Susan needs to be listened to. I want people to listen to me. And it's really crucial for leaders in the church to be listened to. There is a story about a leader who went to his pastor and said, I really need to be listened to, or I need you to come visit me. He says, oh, I don't visit you. I see you every Sunday. I said that to a woman once. She's regularly in church, and I often sit next to her at the women's table where they're having their Bible study, where they're still just having their coffee. And she said, but I want you to come to my house. Broke my heart, just broke my heart. And I then went to visit her, but I could never visit her enough. You know, it's like the person in the nursing home, and that's the frustration of a pastor. So, you know, that's why we have Craig Kephart to hear that and say, so it's a lot of listening to other people and people aren't listening to you. So listening to each other, and you're right, TJ, we're talking about when there's a real issue there, it is more crucial. But practice all the time, practice with your grandkids. Oh my goodness, Gabby, they won't stop. They won't stop. Children, husbands, same thing. Any other experiences, how it was for you?
Yeah, many words, it'd be pretty easy.
Share more words. Tammy said that her husband is not a man of many words. And I have to wonder, are people being quiet because others have not listened to them? And there are differences of people, for different personalities, is what Sarah's saying.
Talkative person like myself, like I enjoy conversation. I want to further the conversation. You know, Bill was telling me about going to Myrtle Beach, and I want to, I want to know more, about Myrtle Beach. So it's hard to just. I want to expand that conversation.
Right. Okay. Bill is saying that he wants to expand the conversation when he's talking with someone else. Yeah. I think you get the idea of this, and it is the building block. Think of, you're going to build a building. Paraphrasing is the building block. And we want to, do the best we can with that, because they're going to come windows and other structures in the building, which are more complicated. And if you don't have a good foundation with the paraphrasing, then the other ones won't work as well, because every conversation you have will come a time when you need to paraphrase what a person has said. Just for clarity, and now might be a good time to talk about what's going on behind the scenes. A has a fiat behind them. Those are their feelings, intentions, And feelings and intentions, yeah, actions. They're actually doing something, sometime moving. And thoughts. Am I muted?
Not.
Things that are coming on my screen.
Oh, I see.
And I can't see what I writing. Okay. What's the word?
All right.
Give me from page. I think. See her.
She had to leave and
Leave a chat.
Jackie also, when we couldn't raise her, apparently came and left also.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. So the same thing is happening over here with B as well. And they have the same fiat, only it's a little different. They have feelings. They have inferences. Understand that difference? A is intending something, B is inferring, guessing what they're doing.
So B's to listen,
What's that?
B's to listen.
The B is a listener, exactly. And they're guessing at what the intentions are. You know, and we're not always clear what intentions are, but then actions, we talked about that. You can mirror them. You can do some of the same things that they do. And thoughts. Actions are more public, but the thoughts, feelings, and inferences or intentions are all private. So we're going to use other skills to get back at using the body and the tone to feed back other information to them. Is that clear? I think the hardest thing is understanding this feedback link and where the various skills are operating. Why they operate in this way. The next one is something we call perception check. And I'm saying, I always wondered, why don't you say guess at their feeling? There's more that you're perceiving. You're perceiving and you're going to make a check back to them what you're perceiving. I see you standing there. I'm sorry, Vivian, with your hands across your chest. I'm wondering if you are upset with me or you just might be cold. She's agreeing that she's cold. Okay. But when someone is like this and holding their body in a way that looks, you know, like I'm cutting you off, you need to check or you can check. So that was my perception check. A perception check usually starts out very tentatively, like perception check. Diagram. You want to start out tentatively, and we just call it a tentative stem. I can put that up for you guys, and I can pass these out to you all. That's why they're here. Oh, thank you. A stem just means you're letting them know that you see something, you notice something, you sense something. And this is in eye language, not you look cold. No, I could have done that. Or you look mad. You see how telling somebody something and it might not even be true and they could be offended that you even say it. But if I say, I'm wondering or I'm curious, I see, and then I talked about what I saw, your hands are up like this, and then I'm wondering if you might be angry at what I'm saying or just cold. And she said, just cold, to clarify that, okay? So take a look at the stems you get here. It appears to me, you can use it. It seems like, I'm wondering, you use the I language, I'm wondering if is it possible? Is it possible? I have a hunch. I get a feeling. You know, you're now doing your communication back to them about their tone. It could be the tone or the body and the way it's perceiving it. I just did a workshop, and there was this man in the workshop, and he couldn't understand that I noticed things about him. So we'd go to lunch and I'd say, I noticed that you put your head down and you had a look like, a little kind of a grr, you know, did you disagree with what we were talking about there? And he looked at me, said, yes, I did. You know, it's almost like this is a person that's not been observed a lot with careful listening. They've been ignored, or someone just walked by, made an assumption. He's an angry man. I'm going to leave him alone. And he says, well, I have some trouble about this, and I have trouble with that. I said, I do too. That really bothers me. We were into a conversation then, and we were agreeing on something. And we just started talking because it was lunch. I wasn't just working on him, but he was surprised that I noticed something about him. We were in a workshop one time, and there was a guy, and he was kind of using, you know, male pronouns all the time. And a few times he just sort of cut me off. And I said, I'm sorry, but when you do that and you just went right by me and didn't consider me, you know, I feel hurt. You know, and I have a problem with that. And looked at me and started crying. You know, this skill is so carefully done. It can be so carefully done that people feel the love. He says, no one has ever like that. No one has ever cared enough to something. He was bawling in front of me. I'm like, oh, let me out of here. This stuff works too much. One thing I noticed about him that was bothering me. The partner I got, I thought I'd tell him, you know, and so beautifully to bring us closer, not further apart. And wouldn't it be nice at church if we're getting closer together, just with common, ordinary paraphrasing and perception check? Okay, now I have on the back of that, is a list of feelings. And you're going to want to name a feeling, okay? So I want you to, everyone, to try to take a guess at what I might be feeling. Annoyed. Anybody else?
Enraged.
Oh, somewhere between annoyed and enraged. I'm thinking of not being taken care of at a counter or something. And I kind of want them to know. So I'm going to give them a little, what's up here? You know, what's the matter with this place that you can't answer? You know, the people that serve you are there to serve you are not serving. You know, so good one, good on you. See? And then sometimes we're wrong too. Was anybody tentative about making a guess?
I was looking for the right word.
And
Yeah, I thought it was I'd rather be some.
And that's okay to ask. You say, would you rather be somewhere else? Maybe the clerk would come up and say, excuse me, ma'am, if you're getting ready to leave, have we upset you and you want to leave? And I'll go, well, I've been upset, but no, I'm not looking to go somewhere else. The only problem with doing one of these, if you're way off, like if I'm doing this and you say, well, you look really happy. it feels like sarcasm, sorry. It feels like you're so far off that, I'm gonna be annoyed at, even more annoyed. And maybe get outraged, something like that. So, it's okay to guess. And then what I would say was, what was your word again? I've forgotten it already.
I couldn't find a word. It looked like you'd rather,
Okay, you look like, that's kind of a sense of what you're guessing I'm feeling, and that's fine. And I would say, well, that would help, but I'm annoyed because they're not helping me right now. See, so you get to the same response, the exact same response, and guess what? I've been heard, I've been noticed. Like that man, he is. I called him out in a loving way, talked to him at lunch about what was upsetting him. And lo and behold, I have the same feelings he does. But we can be a church that pulls closer together instead of further apart. I want to do another one like this before we might do some practicing, because you can put them all together. There's a saying. How many of you have heard the body never lies? Know what that means? Body language.
Your actions always give you away pretty much.
Thank you, Ken. That's a good way of putting it. Your actions give you away. It's body language. It's what your body's doing. And I can remember being at a conference and I was like this, so hands over my stomach. I had a flight and I got in something, bug or something. And some man followed me to the bathroom and was yelling inside. He brought a woman with him to follow because he noticed that my body was hurting and something was wrong. He took a woman with him. He says, there's something wrong with this woman that just came to the conference. And she came in and said, are you okay? And I said, well, not really. My stomach's really bad. Well, that guy was like a medical assistant. And he put his fingers on a few spots in my back and did that massage thing right on the connecting node. I don't even know what this all is, but my stomach started to get real warm and whatever juices needed to flow were flowing. He says, there, you might be feeling a lot better, but when you go back into the room, why don't you lay down on the floor on your left side? I did exactly what he said. I felt better instantly. So that's someone who not only notices because they're in some profession, but they follow up on it. You can't hide something like that. I can't be walking around happy day when like I gotta, let loose of something really fast, up or down, something's not right in there. And interesting. I was going to the bathroom. That's a lot of noticing. It's a lot of caring. And we were just at a conference together. So that can happen. I don't have anything specific for a body description. This is a skill between the behavior and your inference. Like, let's say you're sitting there now, Tammy, at the very back, she's sitting there like this. And I might say, I see your hands across your chest, and I'm wondering if you aren't getting comfortable and feeling like you want to buy out of here. Just kind of drop out of this whole seminar. Is that right?
Just like trying to get comfortable. I have like a neck and I'm really trying to get comfortable all day.
Oh, well, I'm glad you shared that. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, I'm not worried about.
Yeah. Time to give a break though. And so we usually do, I should know what time it is. I can do this. Yes, it's 2:00. So we should have a break, right? Is that 90 minutes? And he had been a druggie. He'd been on the streets like everybody else. And now he was having the opportunity because the pastor said, come on up here. Because half the congregation he brought in were his hippie friends that were kind of excited that there was one way and Jesus had given them new life. Find out what it was all about. And they're looking at the church. This is a nice place. Got a roof over your head. Shift tents. And didn't have any money because they just got off of drugs. And yeah, so they weren't wearing fancy robes, what everybody else wore. I think that's part of it. But we're just having this great old conversation about why we give up certain things in the church. And I think the only thing I don't want to give up is Jesus. You know, if God tells me, you know, and God's been pretty bold sometimes. I've gone to get dressed and start putting on some casual slacks and everything, and God says the suit, the blue suit. I don't know why I need a blue suit today. Somebody died. I was on television. I needed a blue suit. They came in with the media, and the person got their reputation in the media. And the person this was in our congregation, and isn't what they want to hear on the news, but she recognized it was fair. It was a KDKA or something. Recognized what I was saying was fair. She let me go on, talk about this, how this woman, you know, reached out. The person was troubled because he drove the car, and her and him. Story was, you know, oh, they're in trouble, they're troubled people, they're, you know. Said so. Other times I wear the colors of my grandchildren's basketball team. That's what I'm doing for the day. Okay, so this is language that we're talking about. I think it fits. Why do we do what we do? And the kids are going to ask you that question. Why are you wearing that robe? You know, it's not important that I'm speaking. It's important that I'm talking for God when I get up in the pulpit. I might have said something. Susan in my pink suit or whatever I'm wearing that day, I want to just be hiding behind this dark robe. Come from the Bible. How you're doing it. So that when someone asks you the question about your body language and what you're doing, you know, you can clarify what your intention is. Some people might look at a robe and think your intention, excuse me, you're wearing that robe there with all of its colors and looks like you got some degrees there too, that are strapped onto the sleeves. You think you're something special? Is that your intent, to try to let us think we're peons? How are you going to break out of that one? Jim, what are you going to say? Oh, or explain to them that there's another reason for it.
I don't want to offend them.
No. And that is your real intention. And even a kid coming at you with a negative question, you need to know who you are and what your real intention is. That's what good communication is. We have here in this little chart, checking what's going on. Yeah, I was one of my church experiences at Fourth. I think we're coming back from a training at Presbyterian. I had one of my youngest people there, you know, and he's just up in Pittsburgh, he's got a job, comes back on weekends to be with his family and everything. And I'm thinking, you know, he's got a job, you know, he just got out of school, he got a job, he's got to be there. I can't be asking him to come Thursday nights and, you know, sometimes Saturday mornings or whatever. So I'm just letting him do what he can do. And he said to me, we're driving, I'm driving. He says, "Hey, you're at this church too long." So there is a skill called negative inquiry. And I want him to give me very specific things that he would critique me on. And negative inquiry is being able to take the blow of what the person is saying without throwing any aspersions on why they're doing it. I said, what is it that makes you think I've been in here so long that maybe I need to leave? Very nice, common, decent answers. The young man says, well, a lot of people that have been here as long as you have are still in the roles at the church, and there's no opportunity for, he's telling the story now, there's no opportunity for other people to step in. Like me, he didn't say. My next question, of course, was, opportunity to do anything in the church, what would it be that you would want to do? You see how I could take it off of me? He's not attacking. That is an attack. Although I've been there a long time and faced many battles, and they've told me many times, no, 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 don't you dare leave. But here is someone daring to say something like that. So I take it as real, you know, and something that we can deal with, because he probably loves me as much as anybody does, you know. So it was true. We just saw something. And he said, well, I come on Saturday and stay with my grandma, and I'm there on Sunday every week. He said I could do something in the Sunday school. I went back and I said, Bill, you want to do the Sunday school replacement? I said, how about this young man? He said, perfect. I'll talk to him today. He didn't. This Bill would take another job, you know. That's need to move on. Most of these older people are thinking, how long do I have to do this, Susan? You know, but there we took a statement where I could have misunderstood his intention and been offended and just driven him home and said, went home and told my husband, well, this young church, what's his problem? You know, and blame him for something that he didn't even intend. So it's a difficult thing, and the lower skill of this is body language. So his body language, he says, so you're saying that because you really don't want me there anymore? He said, I could do that as I'm trying to clarify, what's your intention here? He'd say, no, I just think nothing's changing because you're still here and all these people are keeping the same positions. You know, he'd probably say something like that. Get the same response. This is a easier skill to learn, but you're just describing their behavior. So I'll pay attention to that one. Perception check, because during the break I was able to find my exercise sheet, which is underneath a few more papers. Just an example. And you're going to do the perception check. Remember, you're going to aim for a feeling, but you're going to start with a tentative. And then make sure at the end you say, is that right? You're really at. So I'm going to play this part. Did you hear what the preacher said today in the sermon? Do it again. Did you hear what the preacher said today in the sermon? I'd like to give him a piece of my mind. You got it? Careful, you gotta put the stem on it. I'm wondering. Oh, yeah, go.
It seems to me that
something about sermon upset you, is that?
Perfect. Vivian said, it seems to me with the stem that something about the sermon upset you today. Is that right? No. No, it wasn't the sermon. It was that the people he's talking about in the sermon. And I think he said the wrong thing, you know, I don't like those people. Still not gonna critique my pastor. But, you know, he was. Angry though. I'm upset. Good, excellent. Here's another one. My children are not learning any Bible in their Sunday school class. The whole thing in the question, she got the tentative, is it possible that you're upset with something in the Sunday school class? Or just or close enough so I could clarify and say. Perception check. Okay.
Believing in God.
Well, actually, I see how I can keep going with God. That one, I don't see how I can keep going with God. Good, although it's not a perception check, it is, she says, what you say it again, it was a long. Seems to me
that we
that
need
we need to have
a conversation
conversation.
about how you're feeling about your relationship with God. Would you be open?
Yeah, she focused on the deeper conversation about your relationship with God. And it didn't get to a feeling, but what you did was you opened up the conversation for me to say about anything, just about anything, very broad, open-ended language. And that's a skill right there in itself. When we tend to narrow people down, you know, what don't you like about him? And you're like, what? Oh. So is this person that I'm talking about? We ask questions like that, like we have a right to be open. Over at John today, and I got an idea that you might be upset, are you? Like, pointing at him and pointing at John, and John's a jerk. Instead of what's conversation aimed, TJ opened up the conversation. So that works. Okay, let's try another one. Believe that calling on the inactives is a waste of time. Jay, weren't we doing that back then?
Yeah. Agree.
Active is a waste of time. What would you say to her?
I agree.
Carrying lab at your congregation.
But I have a feeling that you all are not really wanting to call the
Or a fear of calling on an inactive member, something? Is that possible? Okay, yeah, right, someone reaching out to you. Bingo. Okay, a lot of it comes from our personal experience. Do you have an answer to that? Is there fear of, you're looking at me?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm first one.
Call and check on somebody. Do you know what happened in our congregation? It's just the saddest. Younger men was telling the older men, actually teasing them and saying, why you gotta dress up in your suit all the time? Younger by a whole generation. He was 40, 50, and they were 70, 80, you know? And stopped coming to church, who were there with their wives every Sunday. So Susan saying, okay, oh, you might. I went, what? He says, what? Story, some guy in church started teasing him about wearing this. I went to the guy that was teasing him. Terrible. But see, his intention was inferred by the guy with the suit that changed. He didn't really want. There's nothing good, bad to jag about. So I went, this guy went, and someone else I found out was just ties and everything, and they were now moving. He was an older guy, but he was going around saying, yeah, we don't need to wear those suits and ties all the time, you know. This was a little movement that was going on in the church, and I said, I'm afraid you've got to go apologize. Two inactive members now. Did you go see the other one and tell him that you're sorry that that conversation never came? Absolutely. I'll be at his house tomorrow. Guys were kind of jokey. They wanted to move on in a new way without suits. We were having that conversation. And the older guy was, both of them were World War II vets. And their uniform was extremely important to them. And how they carried themselves. And so a suit was what you wore to church. And they never said to the young people, accepted that younger generations were not going to do this. So, God, take the last stand. And they really got hurt. I mean, these gentlemen were really hurt. It's my church. It's my church for 50 years. So I got a suit. What else am I going to wear? My dungarees, you know, my farming clothes. So I got suits or farming clothes. What should I wear, Susan? I go, suit, please, suit.
To the old saying, first impressions, you know, make.
Yeah.
But I can share a story out in Las Vegas, Presbyterian church that I was an elder at. I invited a friend of mine he was raised, well, not really raised, but he was Catholic. Parents took him to a Catholic church, so it was around Easter time, and I invited him to go to church with me, and he was wearing sandals. I didn't think church, and walked in, and we sat about the middle church pews, and someone in that church made a comment. Heard it. They were looking at him, because we had communion, and when he went up to receive communion, they saw that he's wearing sandals, and they made a comment.
Bill's telling the story of a friend of his that he got to go to church in Las Vegas when he lived there. And the man wore sandals, and someone in the church made a comment about it, which he heard. And this is why people aren't in the church. It's called church hurts, and experience hurt in the church. And there's also church trauma. I mean, some aberrant Catholic priests, some, troubled people in leading congregations, leading people astray. It has happened. It's real. It's a reality that we have to deal with. And a lot of people that think it's wrong. And they're leaving the church because. So having a conversation, a creative conversation, might make all the difference. That's why people are telling you, despite the fact that our country is divided, have a good conversation at your Thanksgiving table. See if you can reach out to somebody with love instead of hate. Understand their point of view. Oh, it's this. It's getting back to this. Keeping the conversation going, feeding back. Now, this person goes to visit and says, I noticed you haven't been in church. I can imagine that something happened. And not want to go. Is it possible you got hurt? No, I just got tired. Would you be willing to talk about? See, I'm beginning to use another one, which is pretty easy to use. And I was talking to Paige when she was talking, and I was trying to just paraphrase, but I had some creative questions in there. When they throw up information and they don't quite tell you everything about that, you ask the question, well, what about that? You didn't mention something's missing, or if they give you a new piece of information. Information is fair game. They mentioned it. So you go on, tell me more about that. You mention, falling water. And you're just asking a question about something that they said. So creative questions. Questions are okay, but you don't want to make it you want them to go deeper on something they are talking about. Creative questions using something they mentioned or didn't mention. You mentioned your mom. What about your dad? You're not talking about yourself. Jumping in, doing something like that. Paraphrasing, good perception checks. You're trying to get at the feeling here. I want to get to something that we call story listening, because not only not only does the body never lie, you cannot not tell your story. You're in a conversation for 10 minutes with someone and they'll be hinting at the deepest issue in their life. The deepest issue in their life. I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine who lost his wife. He ended up with a 9-year-old, a 9-year-old boy, Jimmy, 7-year-old girl, Kara, and a 3-year-old baby girl, young girl, 6. And the mom died after a long sickness. And mom was gone. And I was involved in the funeral. And so I was checking on him. How's he doing? How are the kids doing? Good friend. And little Kara, the girl, they all grieve differently. And people do grieve differently. Jimmy, the boy, he was with his friends and they were saying, oh, I'm sorry, Jimmy. And he was crying. Church were coming around and hugging him and he was sobbing into their chest. You know, he was just letting it go. He started his grieving process. And after a while, in the summer, he was done with his grieving. He could go and play baseball and everything. And the next child, who was a girl, Kara, she had a birthday party coming up a few days after the funeral. And that's all she could talk about. Kept focusing on something else. So here were the people in the church, you know, oh, poor Jimmy here. And then go on for your birthday. They were being really good, I have to say, because they were switching. They were not expecting the children to be the same. They switched from one to the other. What were they doing? Matching the person they were talking to. So they let her go on about what she wanted for her birthday. Well, one day, little Kara was going around the house and she's saying, I put my crayons in my desk last night and they're not there now. What happened? Oh, and then her next story was, I don't have a pair of socks in my drawer. Dad, I need a pair of socks. They're not matching. There's not one matching pair there. Every single one is a single one, and there's no pair that matches. And he started to say, well, we'll fix it. And he got quiet. And then she told another story about losing. And basketball, my basketball. You had it last, Jimmy. What did you do with it? Quiet. Looked at his daughter. And he said, a little nonplussed for a while. Big transformation from anger to sorrow happened in her whole being. And she started sobbing as she said, Mom. Really get it out. She was telling a story that had the same message every time she told it. That's this pyramid of stories. And they're not always exactly, there's a pattern to follow that, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, you can have one, Craig. You have another one? Generally, when someone is telling a story and you're with them for a period of time, someone's telling a story, they might start talking at the top, just a little comment about way back when. We always wore suits. We came out of the war, gave up our uniforms, we put on a suit. We were done. And the suit gave us a covering, and we weren't going to tell anybody about that. generation. Great, silent. Okay, then the next time you might talk about feelings back then. We were proud, did this, they had parades and we paraded down the, that's what they'll tell you, stories back, feelings back then. But then if you listen to them, I had a couple of 80-year-old men who opened their wallets. World War II vets had in their wallets about 20 years ago. Buddies that they fought with. That came out. I was in one of the most sacred spaces I have ever been. They told their wives what they told me in that moment. But I had to use all of the skills and spend a lot of time getting to know them. And it was after the incident of the suits, which I think kind of made them sort of prime. I mean, because this all happened and they were teased at church, and they actually went back to church. But after that, I stopped in to talk to them because something was stirring. Sure enough, they told me war stories. And this space here, you want is pain, joy, and then this would be a past. It's feelings. And you're just moving to more present. How is it now? And then it's when you get to pain. The pain, which we learn in trauma now, we know what happened to World War II vets. That was the first time that Sigmund Freud got the idea that those World War II vets were not leaving the war behind. They carried it with them. All the trauma that they experienced, all the killings that they've done, that they didn't, it was right here. I haven't written a theology for that yet. Haven't written a theology that incorporates trauma. And we've got the best traumatic experience on the cross that anyone would. Now some work being done on making a trauma-based Christian theology, so that people can come to our church if they've been traumatized, so they can believe in a God in their trauma, who is not present, who we've discussed, psychologists, pastoral counselors like myself, the things we do, our group sessions. God shows up, and God shows the person where God was when they were being traumatized. First time it happened to me was 3 o'clock in the morning. This woman called me and she just cried. And I said, Linda, where are you? Are you in a bar? Are you in trouble? No. And blubber and blubber and blubber and crying away. And I said, are you okay? I'm going, spraying up a storm. What's going on? It was 3 o'clock in the morning. And, I usually don't talk to people if they're drunk. But she didn't seem to be drunk. And she said, Jesus. And I said, yeah, Jesus. What that means, I said, what's Jesus doing? And she said, he was there. I go, okay, she's trying to tell me something. I let her cry more, and I go, where? She was realizing that Jesus had come, she had come to the point where she was able to hear Jesus tell her that he was right beside her when she was being sexually abused as a child. God will do that. And God does that in something we call faith imagination. Psychologists are picking up on that. It's a spiritual thing. because God's the only one who knows where God was. Another girl tell me that when she was, again, sexual abuse, it's mostly what I deal with. I don't have any more 80-year-old men. That would be now 120, I think, to talk to. But trauma from war is really serious. I think we saw that on TJ at Laboratory. At that time, there was some training being done for pastors, but we were way, way behind. While she was being raped, there was a flower, on the grass. She just focused on that flower. She was that flower. She was in that flower. Whatever was happening wasn't happening. And that she had with God, God said, I was. She knows. And that broke her. God is with everyone in their traumas. God has no problem with the worst, darkest moment of our lives. God is aware and present. And that's the kind of theology we want to share with people in our churches. And takes listening. Paraphrases the blocks, the building blocks. But when you understand what you can do for people, you practice. You practice paraphrasing. And then you add perception checks to get to the feeling and behavior description. So you're not assuming that they're mad when they're or doing something that they're not intending to do. They have another intention. And you have story listening. Just start listening at church for stories and see if a person doesn't tell the same story with the same theme over and over again. And you just need to stop them and say, gee, I've been listening to you. I love you. And I would love to hear what it means that you lost something or that you want to go on a trip. The other part of the coming to the base of this pyramid, the opposite of pain is joy. People don't share their joys either. Do you know what happened when hippies came to Christ and went to their minister and said, I found the Lord, The weird wiki way he says, get out of my church. That's what they said. That's a cult. You encountered a cult. So they were told. Out of a pastor's mouth. Get out of my church. I never have, and I hope I never even think of the words to say, get out of church. This is the last thing anybody should ever say. People drive them out. So you're listening and story listening for similar words or a repeated phrase. Just like we're going to do in Lectio Divina, just like we do in this wonderful practice that's been around for 2,000 years, where you listen to scriptures. The first time you listen for a word or a phrase. The second time you listen and talk to God about it or meditate on it. And then you talk to the third time, you talk to God about it. And in that time, gone deeper to where God wants to be in your life right now. So, here's the people tell. Let's get some examples. Have you noticed any of this in your churches or somebody's always talking about? Baking bread for someone? Does anybody make pies for everybody? Now I took a pie too. I took a pie too. I took a pie. Did anybody do that? ask them. But I guess I'm wondering, has anybody ever brought a pie to me? You know? Or the big one, when we did this training, the guy would end up saying to a bunch of pastors and leaders, and who takes care of you? Does anybody hear a story like I take pies, I take pies? Some story that someone tells at church. As a reinvestment story. Well, we're going camping this weekend. It won't be at church. We're camping. Guess what they say next week? We're going to this play at my daughter's house and we won't be back Sunday. They're telling you they are reinvesting elsewhere. It's a reinvestment story. And what are they doing? Do you want to catch me before I leave altogether? Or are you just going to keep listening to what I'm doing every weekend when I'm not there? They're trying to tell you something. That's it. A reinvestment story. Another one is a rehearsal story. I gotta get ready. When the church is anxious about things and they're saying, well, I gotta get ready for something. And slow them down, stop, sit down and say, I hear you talking about getting ready for, the daughter. I hear you talking about getting ready for a church event. I hear you getting ready. Is there anything else you're getting ready for? Something going on with them. You gotta fight a cancer or get ready for it. And they haven't told anybody yet. You might be the first one because you're hearing their stories and you're putting it together. And you're saying, I heard you say, I heard you say that, I heard you say that. Question. Skills together to get to their pain and joy. Another one is who left their church was pansy around with somebody. Afraid someone's pansying around with their wife from church. Something else, but you want to know. Something happened to them or their daughter or their cousin, and it hurts. Anniversary stories. Virginia Miller, never seen her before. Old, like she's never darkened the door of our church before. And she just came in and sat down in the pew. Just seemed like a heavy sit, But like she belonged there, and I went and sat with her. And I said, "Sorry, just noticed you came today." About 20 years ago, this was my church. I was always raised here. And so anniversaries of deaths. It's a big time to tell stories. People come in and we talk about a death of a dog or whatever. Well, that pain gone? Would they like to know that someone heard it in church that day, that Sunday? After the service and before they got their hat and coat on and left the door? like that, that hears the pain and the hurts that people are going through. in their lives. Just like that, make that happen. Oh, questions about any of this, all of this? What's on your mind? We need another break, or we need some caffeine here.
Tell us again the types of stories.
Yeah, types of stories are reinvestment. Oh, and didn't you want to ask what the dotted lines were for at the bottom? Not be able to listen to anyone's pain that is deeper than the pain you have experienced. Not be able to listen and celebrate the joy of someone where you have not celebrated that joy. So if we're not real happy people, we don't go into the depths of our pain and our experience, we're not going to be really good at this. So this bottom is the reflection of what's up here. And that's what you're going to have to do to get to their pain. And you might get to this middle. This is just a list of the, I'm answering your story. And some people talk about a past event and some past feelings, and people run away. So the support, like if you all listen, really listening to that person, you can train them to be a listener of others. That's what it's going to take. God, I go through so much pain doing this kind of work, but you know, I'm grateful to God. God always shows up. That's what we say. God always shows up. There's never an experience someone's revealing pain. And the other story is rehearsal. Ready for something? And I know someone, or I know something that's lost. That was little Kara's story. I know something that's lost. Someone who? Talking about themselves at some level. And then an anniversary.
Is there a fifth one?
Oh, no, that's it.
Top left says types of stories, A, B, C, D.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I must have forgot one. Back in the notes somewhere. Stories out there, so that's my nature. I want to deal with the back side of this page. This is a page about empathic listening. Take a look at it. It's a summary, really, on the first. This is a summary of what we've done today. Listening empathically. Why listen? It's a loving act. How do you listen? Listen first for content, the 7% of the words, and then listen for feelings. And when someone corrects you, you accept it. You're not trying to say, oh, you're mad. Don't argue with them, please. That's really the opposite of purpose of listening. But I want to look at the back where this is a skill of listening, but It's making people listen to us. When someone needs to listen to us and we want to say something, you're going to have to speak skillfully. That's what's on the back of this page. You got that? Why do you want to speak skillfully? To get your needs met. Once gave my husband a story. I said, look, I've got to go to a session meeting at 6:30. Laboratory likes to have them at 6:30. And dinner can't even begin till 5:30. There's no way I can watch you all eat my own food, get the dishes done and get to church on time. I said, I'm gonna have to leave here at 6 or not much later. And I said, would you be willing to do the dishes so they're not undone when I get home? He said, sure. My husband has done the dishes ever since. Not all. I take a turn, but generally he saw that need for me. Or for me. And I spoke it clearly to him. God be praised. And to solve your problems. You know, how are you going to get something figured out if you can't speak skillfully? A gifted woman that could teach and give a message taught in Sunday school. She's sitting in the hospital in a chair next to her bed, looking very prim and proper. She comes in and says, oh, how are you feeling today? Oh, I feel great. And I said, what about this you told me about? She goes, rattled off everything she just shared with me because she wasn't speaking vital information to the doctor to take care of her. And sorry, but this Susan pastor wasn't going to put up with that. She was a little annoyed at me because but looking pretty and saying everything's fine doesn't make it fine when you're in your 70s and you're facing some really. So was her situation. To solve your problems, you got to speak it up. And why speak skillfully? To avoid hurting people. Discovered that, I knew God wants me to work on my impatience because my impatience gets me in trouble and ultimately hurts somebody. He said that. I'm impatient. What am I doing? Pushing other people out of the way. And I stopped doing that years ago. I had to be the first in the line. And God said, I'm going through the grocery store. There's a line. Get ahead of these people. And God says, why do you have to be first in line? I said, because I'm the most important person. Right? I'll work on that. Answer that came up. So I worked on that, but recently every bit of impatience actually does more harm. And I speak up out of impatience. So I want to speak carefully and clearly about something, cautiously, so I don't hurt people. How to speak skillfully. I love the way it lays it out there. I really care about this relationship. And there is something bothering me that gets in way of good interaction with you. I have a couple of friends who share everything. This one woman, she invited us to go with her down to Hilton Head. And in one day she was saying, well, we don't have to do that. But you just can't. And I said, something, and then it's all over. We're going to keep working on this. And she just looked at me. I forget what it was about, but it was so silly, you know? And I said, let's stop right there. We're here all together. We want to have a good time. We love each other. And I don't think it's that important right now. She backed up and said, well, I guess it isn't. Let's go. We'll go anyway. She didn't even want to go to something. But she got miffed about something. I said, no, we're that way. She says, I'm glad you said that, Susan. I'm glad. And this was like only the second day. I said, no, we can't have individual persons making a determination. Well, I'm not going. Well, that's just going to ruin it for everybody. You know, we can't do that. No, you got to do it carefully. And when you're speaking skillfully to others, when you're intending for someone to listen to you carefully, you want to avoid but, shoulds, and nevers. I never, you should. But, you know, life isn't like that. Say, it seems to me that some like this. So they can say right away, oh, I never do that. Well, Tuesday, when we were going somewhere in the car, you said, oh, that's right, I did. You know, give them an example carefully. Keep the conversation going. Speak your truth, or you won't get your needs met. You won't take others, especially your church. And if you train your church to speak up, then hopefully not the pastor, but one of the people who catch the story going out, I'm never coming back to church. He told me I couldn't wear a suit. Nobody heard it except the wife when he got home. And she's coming to the ladies' events, not church, because her husband won't go with her and she won't come. When he doesn't. Married 50 years. She's not coming if he doesn't come. Oh, she heard it. I heard it from her. Finding out. Because he's not speaking his needs directly. But hopefully people can start speaking their needs directly. Anything else on here that you see? You've been looking at it better than I have. I've been talking. One of the best is they give the example, one of the best buffer phrases when you're starting, I'm wondering, or I'm curious. You know, admit that it's you that's looking into this issue. Might want to dig into something. You might not be ready for it. But if someone's upset again and again and again, and you start out with, I'm wondering.
Last,
Go ahead.
application is, number 2. Chance to chill.
Yeah, give them a chance to chill. I guess what these questions do is they dig up the real emotion. Since emotional already, they're just gonna go get a chance to blast you. But if they're like in your church and they're trying to say something, like this guy that was at the session meeting and he literally got up on a chair, climbs up on the chair and yells at everybody in the rooms. Stand up and I say, it seems like you got a lot to say and it seems important to you. So I'm gonna make sure that we get to talk about that tonight, okay? You know, everybody else is like, oh, here he goes again, you know, I mean, apparently he does it. It's a better way of confronting him, matching him. You know, you could try matching, like, you know, a guy was pushing his way into our on the line, and he's been drinking, and so I just got big. I just went up to him and I said, sir, I need you to leave now. He goes, I just need to get my food. I said, that isn't what I'm hearing from these ladies. You need to leave now. How many men right there at the time, but I just backed him up and out of the church, just calmly and firmly and at his level of, you know, angst or pushiness or something. You know, touching, I think, is okay, but to do the delicate listening skills, it's just going to open them up more. Someone's really irritated, but it does say right there, do use when someone is troubled. But that means troubled like, I want to pass that out. And one more, conflict. How many of you have conflict in your church? I loved what TJ said. Church, there are differences according to the Bible. There are different gifts, different skills. Anybody want to talk about a conflict that didn't make a lot of sense or was a really big conflict? She needs to have one. It's gonna be hard to read. Thank you. Thank you. Conflict is a process to be managed. And the more people you have in your church who have listening skills, the better off it's going to be. We used to have a women's group. I don't know if your women's group is like the one we had, but 2 women ruled the roost. When they went, oh, I'm not doing that. I don't think we should do that. You know, so the president comes to me and she says, what are we going to do at this meeting? How are we going to get the ladies to approve sponsoring and actually giving money to our refugees from, at the time it was not Vietnam, right near there, Cambodia. We had Cambodians coming into town. So couldn't we we're going to help 5 other churches. We're all going to get together and do this and need money from women. We're going to make a donation. I said, are you thinking some people would be opposed? She says, oh, I know 2 people for sure who are going to be opposed to this. And I said, well, what do we know from our listening skills? Well, people like to be listened to. And I said, why don't you listen and everything they have to say about it, and then say, let's take a vote. While you're listening to those 2 people, they will finally shut up. All the other people in a very gracious way. And so when it comes to the vote, women who want to be kind Christians can speak up beyond the 2 that are opposed. So I wasn't in charge of the meeting, but I came and I sat there praying up a storm that this lady was so gracious, the president, and sure enough, up popped one and she said, I don't see why we want to be other people. We got enough needs for them right here in our own. So you think that it's important that we keep all of our money for ourselves, is that correct? And she says, yes, that's right, that's right. And when we raise this money, you know, pretty soon she was stumbling over her own feet because every time it was repeated what she said, she was digging herself deeper and deeper into a very non-Christian hole. And so she goes, well, no, I've said enough. And then she sat down and the other one started. And this woman did. Graciousness, really? You know, sarcastic or anything, listening to her, you know, so you think that these people might have an influence on us in some way that wouldn't be beneficial to our church or our church children. Is that right? Yeah. So she was done. And she says, well, let's vote whether we should be a part of this and give $400 to the Cambodian cause. All in favor, say aye, or raise your right hand. So quiet. Well, it looks like it's 8-2. We'll do it. Dealing with conflict, use listening skills. That's why I want to call this the power of listening. Make changes. You can work with that. Something else, not the church at all, not you at all. Go and listen and see what's going on. So and maybe they can see this. Conflict is an inevitable and important human process. Okay, how many people have never had conflict in their life? Who's skipped it all years? Oh, okay, we can forget that. Conflicts are likely to increase in times of change. Whoops. Is that more anxiety in the church? More. Mhm. And if you're going to change the color of the carpet. Somebody has an opinion about that, right? And then conflicts, I think this is a truism too, can lead to creative or destructive results. How would you get to destructive? You've probably all seen that.
I'm not listening.
By letting or just speaking abusively in a way that doesn't talk about myself, but it says, she did that and he messed it all up. So, you know, that's why we're in this mess. Pointing the finger. And guess what? I'm telling a story about two other people. Who is our dear elders, just so graphic, gave a sermon that no one has ever forgotten. And it was basically, put your finger at someone else. There's 3 fingers pointing back at someone else. Oh, he went through this whole theology and this whole thing about the hand, and people in our church quoted that for 100 years. I don't think they ever quoted me as much as they did me. And then the other lady who gave her sermon, just because you're in the garage doesn't mean you're a car. But just because you're in church doesn't mean you're a Christian. Certain theology around it, but people never forgot about that. Oh, we're not cars. So, but creative, can we think of being a kind of creative church through conflict? By matching somebody who's upset and say, okay, I can understand. You might be upset about this. You bet I'm upset. Oh, he admitted it now. So how many other people are upset? 6 more people and raise their hands. Okay, so we're all upset. We want to throw away the baby with the bathwater. Do we want to keep what's important? Let's put on the board what's important. You know, just start. And they get their ideas up on the board. With listening, Listening skills for an individual, same with a whole group. Did you see how that lady ran it? Listened to two people and then took a vote. She asked everybody, how did you want to vote? Everybody was then free to vote with these two people having been listened to. And I do have a closing at the back, but all my papers are all messed up. Okay. This is Paul Tournier. I used him in my marriage study up at the how to do spirituality for couples, because one is a man and one is a woman generally, and they have two different styles of being spiritual. So I designed something that would work for both of them, and I designed workshops. I lined up all these chairs in a room, and in comes one of my female elders. She goes, "Oh, these ought to be in circles." I said, "Yeah." In circles, that's what I was sharing there, kind of dramatically.
I have to test that theory out.
Yeah, we have a very small space in our church, and we said that we ought to just worship there because we're getting a small group of people. So they put chairs in a circle, and every guy who came in wanted to lean up against the wall. Someone, have you seen what the men are doing? She says, yeah. Because men don't, it's comfortable. Could we just take one end of the room and make a double row? Pastor sat there one time. I said, no, you can't sit there. It's reserved for the men. So then have trouble with that. But anyway, let's do another meditation as we close today, and I'll send you off with a prayer. If you would, let's focus on another image of the church from Paul Tournier. When I lived in the old city, I met the pastor of the local church in the street one day and said to him, "Ever come to visit me?" I go and see the lost sheep. Am I not also a lost sheep? I have seen committed Christians weeping in my counseling room, pillars of the church. As we say, people, pastors or priests constantly in their church councils, people on whom everybody depended, but whom no one troubled to help in their personal difficulties. And the clergy themselves, always standing in the breach, ready to help others and bring them support. How often they seem to me the support they needed themselves. They are usually extremely sensitive people, chosen a life of service, because they were very conscious of the distress of humanity. They themselves suffered much in their person. Advantage over pastors in that they have obligatory answers. So in every enterprise and in all of the responsibilities of life, we lean upon one another. God, help us not to make assumptions about people and what their intentions are. And help us not to assume that some people are okay, because they're always there, always showing up. Help us to look for the people who are hurting the way we once were hurting. So that we can listen to them. The church. Everybody notices and everybody cares and everybody listens. Like Jesus. Thank you all for coming today, for making the effort, for getting through this even online. It's one of the most difficult things the teachers told me in my training when we had people online is not ignoring the people online. So I appreciate you recognizing when I avoided you and letting it go. Thank you very much. I apologize and hope you do forgive me.